Good morning. Welcome to my kitchen. My apron can't take it up enough right now. So, welcome to Pinky Mo's Cakes, Cookies, and Candy, also known as Pinky Mo's Sisters in the Kitchen. And I'm so happy that y'all joined me today. I'm going to be by myself today. Mary is kind of feeling a little bit under the weather. And I tried to talk her into staying home yesterday, but she wanted to come. She wanted to come so bad to be with us, but she just wasn't feeling well. So y'all remember her in your prayers. But she'll be okay. She just needs some rest. So when you do these trips, you kind of take something out of you, and y'all know she never stops. So anyway, Carla's on the other end helping out today. So thank you, Carla. And thank y'all all for jumping on here. We're going to be making, or I'm going to be making, a chocolate milk cake. And you heard right, it's chocolate milk. I'm using chocolate milk instead of regular milk. So I've got my oven on 350. I've got my pans greased, got parchment down. I grease the parchment. I have the sides around them, and I do not flour. I only grease, but I generously grease it. And it looks like there's a little spot right there that might not have got some on it, so I'm glad I looked at that. I've already made one this morning. In fact, I have cooked 2 roast, and actually I had them in the slow cooker, so they actually cooked last night, but 2 roast and 1 cake this morning, and now I'm fixing to make another cake. So we're just going to get started. Y'all know that we are sponsored by Imperial Sugar. I'm going to be using Imperial Sugar today. In a couple of different areas. This cake is going to have 7-minute frosting on it. So I'm going to get my dry ingredients together first. I've got 1 3/4 cup of all-purpose flour, and I'm going to just put this in the bowl and kind of whisk it together. A teaspoon of salt, and I've got my little pen here so I can check these off. I've done this so many times, but you know, I got in the habit of checking the stuff off as I did it, so I make sure that I didn't leave something out. And then this is baking powder, and it's 2 teaspoons of baking powder. That's our leavening agent. Make sure that your baking powder has a good date. If it doesn't have a good date, you need to throw it out and get you some that get you a new can or sack, whatever comes in your area. Okay, so I've got 1 3/4 cup of flour, 1 teaspoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and I'm going to go ahead and add my cocoa to this also and whisk this up. I opened a new can of Hershey's cocoa this morning, so I just went ahead and sifted it, and I made the biggest mess because I was sifting it in the container, and so this container is a little bit smaller than my sifter, so I had cocoa everywhere. But if you're making something with cocoa, it is a good idea to sift it because it might have some lumps in it. So I went ahead and sifted that, and that's going to be, I'm adding 1/4 cup of cocoa, and this is just regular Hershey's cocoa. So I'm going to add this to here. Get my leveler and get this leveled off. I keep a canister for cocoa, a canister for cornstarch. You know, when you bake a lot, you just need, you need these containers to keep your stuff in. So I have to have my wet rag here. So I'm going to whisk this all together. There's my cocoa at. No, I already checked it off. Now, if you want to sift your flour, you can. I don't normally keep flour long enough. My canister holds, 5 or 6 pounds of flour, and I usually keep it pretty much close to the bottom. So I don't sift the flour unless the recipe specifically says to, and I think this one did, but my flour was good, so I didn't sift the flour. But I did sift the cocoa. So I'll just set this aside here. I just kind of got that kind of incorporated together. And this particular recipe calls for melted butter. 1 stick of melted butter and 2 cups of sugar. So we're going to put 2 cups of our imperial sugar in here. I'm going to be using the sugar again over there when I start the 7-minute frosting. So I'm going to pour my butter in here, and it's melted. I think I already said that. Make sure you get it all. Molly taught us to get every bit out of the container, and that's a big pet peeve of mine when you see so much stuff left in containers that should be in your recipe. Okay, so we got that in there, and then I have broke 4 large eggs. These are actually extra large. I don't think there's that much difference in large and extra large, but I buy extra large when I can. So I cracked them separate, so I'm just going to pour all 4 of them in there. And I'm going to add my vanilla. And you want a teaspoon of vanilla. And if you have extract, you're going to have a much better flavored cake if you use extract. If you don't, use what you have. But I prefer the extract. Now, when we make the 7-minute frosting, I'm going to use clear vanilla, and it is a blend. It's not going to be extract. Okay, let's get my mixer started here, and this cake comes together really, really quickly. I got this all mixed up here, and I should have put that on the other side here, but it doesn't drip everywhere. Now I'm going to alternate with the dry mixture and the chocolate milk. And the chocolate milk is, let's see, I got my eggs, and the butter was 1 stick. 1 stick of butter. It is real butter. I haven't had margarine in my house in many, many, many years. Again, if you're going to cook, my philosophy is use the real stuff, you know, and that's my personal opinion. If y'all use something else, that's fine, but I like to use the real stuff, and the butter that I use is salted. So 1 stick of butter, 2 cups of sugar, and we're going to do 1 cup of chocolate milk, and we'll alternate this with the flour. Several years ago, when I was young, in my 20s, I was in Jackson. I dreamed one night that Sister Jean's sister, Sarah, was giving me the ingredients to a frosting for a cake. And it was made with chocolate milk. And I have made that frosting many times, and I'm not making it today. It's just every time I use chocolate milk in something, I think about that dream. I just dreamed the recipe, and so I wrote it down when I got up, and I've used that recipe for a long time because I just thought it was just unusual to put chocolate milk in a frosting. So I'm going to start with the flour. I'll just use this same cup here, and I'm going to add, I don't know, 2 or 3 little scoops, and I'll pour some milk in here. And you know, there's no rhyme or reason. You don't have to pour a certain amount, but you just want to alternate it. I'm going to put some more flour in here. Actually, this is the dry ingredients. It's not just flour. I'm just going to put all that in there. Try to get it all out. Okay. And then I will get this started and put the rest of my chocolate milk in it. to make sure that you get it mixed good. So we'll get this all out of the way here. And just move this over here for right the time being. Get my pans out. I didn't mix the chocolate chips in. I'm just going to add them. I'm just going to fold them in. Make sure I've got everything in here. Chocolate chips are last. And I'm using 1 cup of milk chocolate chips. Now, if you want to use semi-sweet, you can, but I'm using milk chocolate. So, just take my spatula and fold those chips in. This is a really good cake, and if you look at the batter, it's a really nice batter. So, I tend to kind of get this to where you can't really see me doing it. I'm trying to work on that. So I'm gonna pour some in here. I'm gonna lose that chocolate chip. Whoops. I'm just kind of eyeballing it to try to get it about even in the pans. They may not be exactly the same, but they're gonna be pretty close. It's kind of messy. The chocolate. I think I'm going to get my bowl scraper here to finish getting that out of the bowl. It's just a little faster. Now the one that I cooked this morning, I cooked it for 38 minutes. Everybody's ovens are a little different. So if I were you, I would set my timer for 30 minutes and then, you know, be real careful when you're opening the door, because if you jar it, it's going to make your cake fall, and you don't want that to happen. But you can kind of tell just by barely moving it if it still needs to cook a little more. And a lot of it also will depend on what size cake pans you're using. This morning I used a 9-inch, and you'll see when I get the cakes over here to frost them that they are a little bit bigger than these. They're shallower, but they're a little bit bigger around. So I've got these, and I do have a little bit more in one of the layers than I do the other one, but that's okay. It's not going to matter. I'm making this for this weekend. So I'm going to pop these in the oven, and I will move the camera over here, and we're going to get over here and start the frosting. You don't want your cake pans touching. Okay, so I've got that set on 30 minutes. And I'm going to get this all out of the way just so I'm not ready to work over here in a minute. Y'all bear with me here for a second. Get the milk put up. Okay, I think I'm ready now. I got my burner on. So, this is going to be the 7-minute frosting. And I went to the store this morning to grab some egg whites just so I didn't have to separate and crack all of them. So I did use the whole eggs in this cake. Most of the time when you're making 7-minute frosting, you only use the egg yolks, but I wanted the whole egg in there, so I bought some egg whites. So you grab these out of the refrigerator, and to do this for each egg white is 2 ounces, and so I want on the recipe for our members that is on our member page that you can print. It calls for 5 egg whites. So I want 10 ounces of this egg whites. And this is just, I got it at Brookshire's. This is Bob Evans. You can get anywhere you want. But this is what I got. It's Bob Evans. Make sure you check the date, because the first one I picked up went out this week. And I knew I wasn't going to use them all today. So, you know, it's a good idea to check the date to make sure you're not wasting something, because they're not cheap. Okay, so I'm using my heavy-duty mixer, and I'm going to go ahead and do my 8 ounces on here, and then we'll start the simple, not the simple syrup, but we'll start the syrup. So, and this measuring cup has ounces on it, so I'm going to do just about 10 ounces is what I'm going to do. Maybe not quite. This is just a 2-layer cake, so probably not going to take quite as many. And now this is cold. You know, most people would set this out at room temperature. I'm just a nut about something setting out and getting and making somebody sick. So I'm putting these in there cold. You want to set them out, leave them setting out. Well, that's your prerogative, but I just don't. Okay, now this is going to make a little bit of noise. I'm going to try to turn the camera away from the mixer. Now on the simple syrup, not simple syrup, keep saying simple syrup. I did use simple syrup today, but I'll show y'all that later. This is the syrup that goes in the 7-minute frosting, and I'm going to use 2 cups of sugar, and I'll get my sugar over here. If you put your sugar in first, there's 2 cups of this. I keep knocking my water off. Get this out of the way. And I'm going to use 3/4 cup of water. And you just pour that on top of there. And I've spilled a little bit. My paper plate's clean, so I'm just going to pour the rest of that in there. And just give this a quick stir. Now this is going to dissolve real quick because it is imperial sugar. And it calls for 1 tablespoon of Karo. I don't measure it. I just eyeball it. Put just a little bit of salt in it, just about 1/4 teaspoon, not much, just a little. And if you're measuring 1 tablespoon of Karo or light corn syrup, whichever one you have in your pantry. So I'm going to start this cooking. You want to start it on kind of medium because you want those crystals to dissolve before it starts getting to the point that you need to pour it in your egg whites. And for those of you who are wondering, are concerned about raw egg whites, this hot syrup cooks those egg whites when you pour it in there. So you do not have to worry about thinking that you're eating a raw egg white, because believe me, this is going to be boiling and it's not going to be any danger of it making you sick if your eggs are good. Turn that up just a little bit. So, I know that we've told y'all this before, but years ago, and again, I apologize about this noise from the mixer, but when you're cooking, you know, you get noise from whatever you're using. But a few years ago, Mary and I were on our way to Mississippi, and we've told this before, but every time I open chocolate milk, I think about that. And we stopped at Vicksburg. And I was used to traveling by myself. I wasn't used to nobody opening anything for me. You know, I always done my own thing. And so we went in the store, you know, and had a little bathroom break. And when we come out, we were both at the chocolate milk, at the cooler, getting a bottle of chocolate milk. So we get back in the car, And I reached down to get mine to shake it, and Mary had already opened it for me. Bless her heart. That chocolate milk went everywhere. It was on the top of the car. It was a rental car, thank God. It was, and y'all know how sticky chocolate milk is. It is very sticky. Went all over her, all over the car, all over the top of the car. I felt so bad because it was my fault. I didn't know she had opened it, and I just felt so bad that I shook that and it just went everywhere. But anyway, for those of you who are asking again, Mary is just a little under the weather. She cooked twice this week in a row because I cooked twice last week, and she felt like she needed to cook twice this week. And she didn't feel that good yesterday, and she just needs to rest. So, you know, when you get feeling bad or you're kind of run down, it takes you a minute to get over it. So she'll be okay. She just wasn't feeling her best this morning, and that would there was no need in her coming over here and spending a half a day when I could do this by myself. So I was glad that she decided to go back home. So I'm going to check this again. I don't want it to start cooking without me looking at it. All right, you can see that it's, you don't want to, another thing you don't want to do after this starts cooking, you do not want to stir the sides. And I'm going to change spoons because I don't want any of those crystals in my syrup. So what happens, if you stir those crystals down in the syrup and you bite into a piece of cake and that frosting, it's going to be like little beads of hard candy, and it can hurt your teeth. So don't stir the sides of the boiler once it starts boiling. Just let it do its thing and don't keep stirring the outside of it. Okay, our egg whites are beaten pretty good over there. And this is the vanilla that I'm using here. It's Watkins Clear Vanilla, and it is a blend, and it is very good. It smells delicious. It tastes delicious. It's just not extract. It's a blend. But when I'm using a white frosting that I don't want discolored from regular vanilla extract, I use the blend. Now, if you're making frosting for a pie and you're putting it in the oven or you're torching the top of it, it doesn't matter if you use the dark because it's going to be dark anyway. But when you want the cake to be white, like have a pretty white frosting on it, then you need to use a clear vanilla to go in it. Wilton makes one. Watkins makes one. I'm sure there are others. Those are just the two brands that I know. And if you're looking for that, look in the cake decorating aisle. If your Walmart has one, that's usually where you can find the clear vanilla, is in the cake decorating aisle. All right, I'm going to turn my burner up just a little bit. I'm done like Mary done. I turned the wrong burner. I hadn't done that in a while. Set it back there until this one gets hot. No wonder it wasn't doing anything, and the burner wasn't on. Okay, our egg whites are beaten pretty good over there. And I usually keep a little bit of, if I have buttercream left over from a cake that I've just done, I'll stick it in a container and put it in the refrigerator. So when I get ready to attach the cake layer to a cake circle or a cake board, whatever I'm putting it on, I just put about a spoonful of this and put it in the microwave for like 6 or 7 seconds, and I use this to secure my cake layer on the cake board, and I'll show you those in a minute. I just don't want to leave this right here while it's cooking. Hopefully I'll be able to see this start cooking in a minute. We'll check on my egg whites over here. Now I'm sure that if you set your egg whites out, you know, for a few minutes and you get them come to room temperature, they would be fine. It's just, It's just a thing that I don't do. I've had food poisoning with eggs before, not at my house. I'm hard pressed to eat an egg at any restaurant. And where I got it at was at DFW Airport at McDonald's. And I was on a long flight to California. And that was a miserable flight for me because I was very sick. And I said then, I will not be eating an egg somewhere unless I know where it's cooked and I know it's not going to make me sick. So I'm pretty particular about that. All right, now that I got the right burner on, we'll get this syrup going. Okay. Now, I could have used the smaller mixer, but I wanted to use this one because I didn't want it coming up to the top. And you can tell it's starting to come up, so it's got a little ways to go yet. Most of the time, when you start your syrup, it's usually done about the same time that your eggs are beat. And this would have been cooking if I would have had the right burner on. But anyway, that's not a big deal. You know, anybody that's never cooked live on Facebook or whatever media you're on, they need to try it at least once, and they might not. People might not be so quick to say things because, believe me, you may think it looks easy, but there are times when you'll forget this or you'll forget that. And, you know, when you're cooking at home and you're not on live, you make a mistake, you just fix it. But when you're on live, you know, you make a mistake and people like, oh my goodness, look at that. And sometimes it's funny and sometimes it's not, depending on how you're feeling. But anyway, we're just human, you know, and sometimes you make mistakes. So I got the right one on now. And again, I'm not going to use this spoon again. I'm going to put this in the sink. I'm going to use a different one. This should start boiling pretty quick. And as you beat these eggs, the volume is going to increase. As you can tell, it's already increasing. I'm going to turn it all the way up to 10 because I want those to get real done. This will be coming up to a boil pretty quick because I've got it on high, and I'll have to turn it down in a minute. Again, I'm not going to stir that. Now, this is my first layer here, and you can see that it's shiny on top. I've got simple syrup on top, and this is kind of rustic. This is a different cake pan than I've got in the oven. So it's got some little edges around it. I could have cut them off, but I didn't because I don't care. It's going to be covered up with frosting anyway. This smells so good. It really does smell good. This boiler handle's fixing to get hot. I got my spatula or two spatulas, my offset spatula to do the icing with, and this is to take it out of the bowl with. We're going to be able to do that in a little bit. So, I cooked the roast. Mike had bought a roast the other day, and we're having barbecue sandwiches Saturday when my niece Missy and her family comes. And so Mike had bought one the other day at Kroger's, and then I got to thinking, you know, what if that's not enough? You know how we are, because we cook enormous amounts of food. So I was in Sam's yesterday, and they had 2 in a pack. So I bought a pack of 2 roast, and I cooked those last night. And so today that's gonna be part of what we eat today. And with a roast, if you make a roast, there's so many ways that you can do it. You can cook a big roast, even if there's just one person or 2 people in your family. It takes a long time to cook one, so you can make like a cold roast beef sandwich or a hot roast beef sandwich like with au jus on it. You can fix it with vegetables, carrots, potatoes, whatever kind of vegetables you like in it. And then you can make barbecue out of it. And so when we cook a roast, we normally make about 3 meals out of it. There's 2 cups of sugar in here, and 3/4 cup of water, and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, just regular table salt. So that's what's in here, and that's going to start boiling in a minute. Should be starting pretty quick. And our egg whites are beaten real good, and again, they would beat a little faster had I had them setting out and they were a little bit warmer. So I'm going to see, I don't know if I can see any questions on here or not, but if I see any, I'll try to answer them. I hope that y'all will like this cake. It's a little bit different because it's got the chocolate milk in it. And the cake that I'm going to frost here live in just a few minutes, I'm taking that to Longview when I get through. Sometimes I think I kind of come across maybe as a hard taskmaster because I like for things to be done. I like them to be done on time. I do not like procrastination. And they worked so hard at the tax office yesterday to get our taxes done that I'm going to take them dessert today. So they don't know I'm bringing it. So I figured that would be at least show our appreciation for them working so hard to get those done yesterday. Okay, now we finally got the syrup boiling. And I'm going to let that boil until it gets to like a stream. And I'll show y'all. I don't use a thermometer. I just do it by the stream test like Mama used to do. I'm going to keep mixing those eggs until those egg whites until my syrup gets ready. Now, a lot of you have mentioned that. You can see that this is still just not where I want it to be yet. I want it to be a real long stream, and when it gets ready, it'll be there. And we'll put the vanilla in last. It's going to take a minute to beat those egg whites after I add the syrup to it, because you're adding liquid to egg whites, so they still got to beat and get thick. And so that's going to take a little bit of time to do that too. And my cake's been cooking for about 21 minutes, so it's got about 10 more minutes to go before I check in. What is simple syrup? Simple syrup is just equal parts of sugar and water. And when you make simple syrup, you want to boil, after it comes to a boil, again, don't scrape the sides after it starts boiling. When it comes to a boil, you want to boil it for no more than 2 minutes. Take it off the stove, let it cool, and then you can store it. If you keep your empty syrup bottles, like I mentioned before, you can store it in that, or you can store it in a container and put it in the refrigerator. As long as you don't dip something down in it, like when you use a pastry brush to do the tops of your cake, make sure you pour it in a small container, because if crumbs get in the simple syrup, it will mold. And if you pour it out and just leave it in the bottle and you're not dipping something in it, it'll last for probably 3 or 4 weeks in the refrigerator. So it's still not quite thick enough. It should start stringing down from the spoon. that my egg white are getting real thick. I'm actually going to turn that down just a little bit. And for one egg, if you buy these carton egg whites, for one egg, you want, for every egg white that the recipe calls for, you want 2 ounces of egg whites. 2 ounces. If you do less, it won't be enough to make your frosting. So we're getting there, but it's not quite where I want it yet. So I'm going to just let it cook just a little bit longer, and then I'm going to go over there and slowly pour it into the egg whites while it's mixing. It's simple syrup used as pancake syrup. It doesn't really have a flavor like maple syrup or strawberry or blueberry syrup. You can flavor it if you want to. I've made flavored simple syrup. Mama used to, when she didn't have syrup in the house, which was very unusual for us not to have syrup in the house. But there were times that we didn't, and she would make what she called sugar syrup, which was basically the same thing as simple syrup. And yes, she did put it over pancakes, but she called it sugar syrup. Okay, you can tell that it's almost to the thread right now. I'm going to cook it just a few more seconds, and then I'm going to go over there and why is it called 7-minute icing? I don't know, because it sure takes longer than 7 minutes. Some people call it boiled icing. That's what Mama used to call it, was boiled icing. But I think the modern term is 7-minute frosting. But it definitely takes longer than 7 minutes to do it. Okay, almost there, and I'm just going to take it over here, and I'm going to start putting it in here. I'm hoping that y'all can see what I'm doing. Now it's going to, maybe I need to raise this up just a bit. Hopefully y'all are going to be able to see that. Now this is hot, so you want to do this slow so it doesn't fling everywhere. And the volume is going to increase in the egg white as you pour the syrup in it. You want to get that boiler in hot water as soon as you finish it, because it's going to set. So run hot water in your boiler as soon as you pour it up, and put your spoon in there. I'm going to wait a little bit before this cooks where I want it. Now your bowl is really hot because it's got that hot syrup in it. Okay, let's see if there are any questions here that I could answer. Yeah, sugar syrup. That's what Mama called it, was sugar syrup, Kathy. Thank you, Janice. A lot of people our age and our generation and older, 7-minute frosting or boiled frosting, as Mama called it, was something that old timers, they used that a lot because it was basically eggs and sugar and water, and most everybody had that. And I'm sure a lot of people have made this without Karo syrup, and you can make it without Karo, but I always add Karo to mine. Now we had Karo and stuff like that around the holidays because Mama would make pies with it, but it wasn't something that she kept in our pantry year round. And let's see, when do I add the vanilla? I'm going to add that at the very end after it gets thick and is beat enough for it to stand. It should stand on the spoon or on the beater, and that's when you know it's ready. You see how thick it's getting? See, it's getting pretty close to being ready. And this is a big bowl full. That was the equivalent of 5 egg whites, which was about almost 10 ounces. I didn't use quite 10 ounces, but almost 10 ounces. So, I know, I'm going to get that away from that mixer because I'm going to take that up in a minute. I know that sometimes a recipe might tell you 1 ounce for an egg white, but I'm telling you, you need 2 ounces of the carton egg whites to equal 1 egg. And I don't know if I learned that the hard way or what, but I know you have to have 2. If I would only put 1 ounce, I would have had half the frosting. And you want enough frosting to make sure that your cake is covered really nice. I'm going to do something a little extra with this cake that I didn't put on the recipe. I'm kind of dressing this up just a little bit. I've got 7 double-stuffed Oreos in here, I know, right? And I'm going to crush these with a rolling pin. Just put it in a bag and crush it. I got several things out here. And I'm going to put this on top of the frosting. I'll show y'all in a minute what I'm going to do with it. You just want to make sure that you use a bag that's not going to tear. You can use a hammer or meat cleaver or meat tenderizer or whatever you want to just crush them. And they don't have to be finely crushed. But you want to crush enough to where it's going to make a nice little. I have to get something to get that off of there in a minute. I think my icing's just about ready. Going to measure this, it's 2 teaspoons, but I'm just going to kind of pour it in there and guesstimate it. Smells so good. You want to make sure that vanilla gets mixed up so you don't just take a mouthful of vanilla. I know y'all are glad to hear this stop. Now this is what I'm talking about. Your icing should stand, and you can see those beautiful peaks. And that's how it should be when it's ready. Now I've got to put this somewhere and get this out of the way, and we'll get this stuff back over here. Oh, that noise was something else. I'm sure y'all are totally tired of hearing that bracket. Okay, I've got my first layer here. I've already put simple syrup on it, and I'm going to rinse my hands because I'm going to be picking up those cookies with my hands. So now this icing is really warm. See how beautiful that is? Isn't that gorgeous? I think it is so pretty. It's such a pretty fluffy white color. And if you use the regular vanilla, it's going to have a tint to it. And to me, it just takes away from that beautiful white snow cloud white. I just think it's beautiful like that. I want to get a generous amount on here because I want those hard workers that worked a lot of hours yesterday to know I appreciated what they done. I probably called them a half a dozen times in the last couple of days plus emails, so I don't want them to think I'm all bad. Okay, now I've got a pretty good generous amount on here, and I'm going to take my crumbs. This is going to be so good. I love texture, so this is going to give it just a little crunch. Doesn't matter if they're not all the same size because, again, this is a rustic cake. It's meant to look homemade. And sometimes when you're doing like a wedding cake or a birthday cake or something, like a anniversary cake, you want it to be perfect. You want it to be completely round and, you know, no odds or anything on it. But since this is going to be like just a really homemade cake, I want it to look that way. Now this is my other cake here, and you'll see that it's, even though I used those smaller pans that wasn't as deep as my 3-inch ones, I did put the parchment rounds, the sides on it, so it made it be a little deeper than the actual cake. And I turned it over on parchment. When I take the cake out of the oven, I get it out of the pan within a very short time. I do not like leaving my cakes in the pan for 30 minutes like they say to. It's as many cakes as I've made in my lifetime, I just don't do that. I get them out real quick. Okay, here's my simple syrup. And you'll see that I poured it in a little container. I'm actually going to need a little more than that. So now you can take a cake tester and you can poke holes in it if you want to. I didn't poke holes in this one because it's real fresh. It hasn't been in the refrigerator, and I'm just going to pour a little bit more in there. And this is what I keep my simple syrup in. I've got several of these containers. It's just always put the date on it, so I make sure that I don't have something in there longer than it should be. Just brush the top and make sure you get it all over. I have some customers, old customers in town, that their favorite cake was chocolate cake with 7-minute frosting on it. And I had actually thought about calling them up and asking them, did they want to meet me to come and get it? But then I just felt like I wanted to take this to Longview, so that's what I'm doing with this one. And then the one that's in the oven is, I need to check my cake. Is going to be for, yeah, my cake's not, they're not done yet. those pans are a little bit thicker, so it's going to take them, it's probably going to take them 45 minutes to cook. That's just going to soak down in that cake and just make it super moist and stay delicious even longer. So I'll just let that kind of. Now what the cake that's in the oven, what I'm going to do with it is when it gets completely cool, I'm going to wrap it up really good and put it in the refrigerator, and then Friday I'm going to take it out and frost it, and that's going to be my dessert for Saturday when Misty and her family comes. Whoops, it's falling off. Okay. This little rubber thing that's under here, it's shelf paper. And for those of you who don't know, that's what keeps your cake from sliding when you have it on a turntable. Just any kind of shelf paper you can use. And I'll tell you another little secret. I keep shelf paper in the back of my car because anytime you have a box back there with a cake in it, if you got that shelf paper down, it's not going to slide all over the car. That's something else that is a pet peeve of mine. I don't like something sliding in my car. I like for everything to stay put where it's at. I need some more on the sides. Now sometimes I'll frost the sides as I go. I didn't this one, but sometimes I do. It just depends on, I guess, whatever mood I'm in. But if you put it on top, you can just take it down to the side and make sure your sides get all frosted too. Because this frosting seals the cake and it keeps the cake from drying out. Now you can actually put some in a piping bag, and you can make it look really pretty if you want to. Or you can just take a spoon or your offset spatula and just make some peaks with that. Just depends on what you're making the cake for, how you want it to look. There's just a lot of ways you can finish your cake up. With this cake, I'm going for taste, not necessarily for it to be really decorative. Although I am going to put some chocolate pearls on it. Now this is the same icing that we put on our coconut cakes. And I'm just going to put some Oreos on top of this. Now don't mistake this for a store-bought cake. It is not a store-bought cake in no form or fashion. This is a homemade cake. I'll get that icing up in a little bit. So I'm going to show you a little trick here. I've just got a vegetable peeler and I've got a bar of chocolate, and I've actually had this in the freezer, so it may have cracked. I don't know. Yep, it did. And I'm going to just kind of shave off some little pearls on the top. You can actually do this with any kind of little candy you got in your candy jar. But I just happen to have this in the freezer. Now this is a different color. If you wanted it to match the Oreos, you would want to use a dark chocolate or a semi-sweet chocolate. This is milk chocolate that I'm putting on here. This out of the way. I've kind of got a mess here. When you decorate cakes, you do cook and bake and decorate cakes. You do get a mess. So, and I'm just going to use the rest of these sprinkles to put around here. And I'm not going to put anything on the sides. I'm just going to leave the sides like they are. Get that up there. It's driving me nuts. And I'll be doing a giveaway on my cooking here in a few days. Some of you may have thought I was going to give something away today, but I will before the month's up be giving something away. So I'm going to clean this board up so it doesn't have icing and everything on it. And I'm going to check my cakes again that's in the oven and see how they're doing. Let me get the sticky off my hands really quick. And I'll show y'all my box. I've got my box ready to put it in. Hopefully this is high enough. If it's not high enough, I'll have to go to another box. But I have a few cake boxes left over from my baking days. I'm going to be running out soon, and I love pretty boxes. I always hated to bake a cake and put as much time as I put in it and put it in a cheap box. So my window boxes are actually 8 inches tall, and if this is not tall enough, if this one's, I think this one will work, but if it's not, then I'll get one of the 8-inch boxes, and they're I think I may have said this before, but I used to get, they come 25 to a case, and that's for the box, and it has a window lid, 8 inches tall, so it's good for tall cakes. And I used to pay $75 for a carton of 25, which was $3 a piece. After COVID and everything skyrocketed, that same case of boxes was almost $300. Yes, you heard me right, almost $300. Everybody's like, well, just put them in a box. There is no way I'm putting one of my cakes in a box lid or in one of those cheap boxes that may fall apart while you're delivering it. I just can't do it. So anyway, this has been kind of a long video. I hope y'all enjoyed this. If you wanted to put a border on the edge, you certainly could. I've got enough icing that I could pipe a border on it. But again, I'm not, because I wanted the cake to be the star and not necessarily the decoration. So thank y'all so much for joining me. I will be cooking Monday here by myself, Lord willing, and then we'll be together Tuesday. Mary should be feeling better by then, and also together Wednesday. So have a wonderful rest of your week. And you never know when we might pop on during the weekend or another day or something. Missy and them are coming. We may film a little bit of that. I'm not sure. But it's a possibility that I will here or that Mary will at her house, because they're going over there after they leave here. So God bless each of you. Thank you so much for sharing and liking our page and telling people about us and your sweet comments, and for always jumping on here and seeing what we're doing. So be sure to show kindness to people when you're out and about, if you're on the phone, if you're texting. Don't think that you have to get the last word in. Always be kind to people. And always, always, always count your blessings. We love y'all, and thank you again, and we'll see y'all soon. Bye-bye.